Hello, my perfectly imperfect souls, and welcome back to the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. We have 30th episode today. Today's episode is rich with insight, history, and spiritual wisdom. I will be exploring the ego, what it is, the process of ego death, and why dissolving the ego is a vital step on the spiritual path and in the practice of psychic mediumship. I will also take a deep dive into three key virtues: humility, authenticity, and unconditional love that are essential for dissolving the ego and really stepping into our true selves. And finally, I'll share some practical steps you can take to begin dissolving the ego in your own life. This episode is special because I am also taking a step further, delving into the rich heritage of Eastern Europe and Poland, where wise women, herbalists, and spiritual practitioners served their communities as healers and guides. These women, though often silenced by societal and religious pressures, carried profound spiritual knowledge that offers timeless lessons for our own journeys. I will uncover their practices, their connection to ancestral guidance, and how these traditions provide profound insights into the dissolution of the ego. By the end of this episode, you will not only have a deeper understanding of the ego and how to dissolve it, but also practical tools and inspiration drawn from this incredible woman and their enduring legacy. So grab a warm drink, settle into a quiet space, and let's dive into this incredible journey. Let's start with the fundamentals. What exactly is the ego? In psychological terms, the ego is the part of our psyche that organizes our sense of self. Sigmund Freud described it as the mediator between our primal desires, the id, or our moral compass, the superego, and the external world. But in spirituality, the ego takes on a different meaning. It is often referred to as the false self, the part of us that clings to identities, labels, and roles to maintain control or significance. It creates the illusion that we are separate from others, from spirit, and from the interconnected web of life. It whispers, you are your achievements, you are your fears, you're separate from others. But this is an illusion. Philosophers and spiritual traditions have long examined the ego's nature. Buddhism speaks of anatta, the no self, which really teaches that our sense of a fixed, separate self is an illusion. Hinduism, for instance, describes Maya, the veil of illusion that obscures our divine nature. And then we have Carl Jung, who emphasized that transcending the ego is essential for individuation, which is the process of becoming whole. Social anthropology also offers insights. Many indigenous traditions emphasize the importance of breaking free from the ego to reconnect with the collective and the divine. Rituals, ceremonies, and rites of passage often serve to dissolve egoic attachments and remind individuals of their place within the larger web of existence. In Polish folk traditions, while the term ego might not have been explicitly used, wise women intuitively understood its concepts through their practices. They taught surrender to divine forces, selfless service, and harmony with nature, all of which required letting go of egoic attachments. The ego can be useful for navigating the physical world, but when left unchecked, it blocks us from experiencing our true essence. It builds walls between us and spirit, between us and our higher self, and even between us and others. The good news, these walls can come down. The ego can be dissolved, allowing us to step into the truth of who we are: divine, interconnected, and limitless beings. So now let's delve into ego death. Ego death refers to the dissolution of the false self, the letting go of the stories, attachments, and fears that the ego uses to maintain control. It is a process of surrender that allows our true self, the soul or higher self, to emerge. This process can be challenging because the ego fears its own dissolution. It clings to control, creating resistance in the form of fear, doubt, or even overconfidence. But ego death isn't the end of you. It's beginning of your authentic self. Many spiritual traditions describe this process as a death and rebirth. In Christianity, St. John of the Cross called it the dark night of the soul, a period of spiritual crisis that leads to profound union with God. In Buddhism, it's the path to enlightenment where the illusion of separateness is replaced by oneness. For most of us, ego death isn't a single event. It is a lifelong journey marked by moments of release and renewal. I truly believe that throughout our lives, we go through many moments of death and rebirth. So, why ego dissolution is essential for psychic mediumship? For psychic mediums, dissolving the ego is not just helpful, it is essential. To truly serve spirit and our clients, we must step out of the ego's shadow and into the light of humility, authenticity, and unconditional love. Here's why. The ego seeks validation. If we're operating from ego, we might focus on being right or worry about how our messages are received. This creates noise in the channel and distracts from spirit's guidance. The ego creates fear. Ego thrives on fear, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. These fears lower our vibration and block the flow of spirit's messages. The ego separates us from spirit. Mediumship requires unity and surrender. The ego, however, thrives on control and the illusion of separation, which can block our ability to connect fully with spirit. By dissolving the ego, we become clearer channels for spirit, allowing messages to flow with clarity, compassion, and purpose. So, when working as psychic mediums, the ego's shadow can be particularly challenging. To truly serve spirit and our clients, we must step out of the ego's shadow and into the light and really embrace it, because those virtues are the foundation of clear, honest, and compassionate mediumship. They are the foundation of spiritual awakening too. So let's concentrate a little bit, and I want to talk about understanding and embracing the three pillars. I'm going to be talking about those three virtues that I've just mentioned: humility, authenticity, and unconditional love. So, humility is the key to surrendering to spirit. Humility is the recognition that we are merely a vessel for spirit's message, not the source of the message we deliver. Spirit is. It dissolves the ego's illusions of control and separateness, opening the door to divine connection. As psychic mediums, humility invites us to let go of control and trust that spirit will guide us. It reminds us that our role is to serve, not to impress. When we operate from humility, we release the ego's need for validation, accuracy, or recognition. But humility isn't about diminishing ourselves. It's about stepping into the role of a sacred bridge between the seen and unseen. So the journey to humility often comes through life's trials, moments when we are stripped of what we thought defined us. For me, moments of loss, struggle, and surrender have taught me the power of letting go and trusting in a higher plan. To cultivate humility, ask yourself, where am I still trying to control? How can I trust spirit more fully? Let's move to authenticity, living and serving as your true self. Authenticity is about showing up as who you truly are without masks or pretense. It's the courage to say, this is me, flaws and all. In mediumship, authenticity is vital because it creates trust, not only with your clients, but also with spirit. When you're authentic, spirit can work through you more freely because you're not blocking the connection with self-doubt or a need to perform. So the journey to authenticity begins with self-acceptance. This means embracing all parts of yourself, your strengths, your quirks, even your shadows. For me, authenticity meant letting go of need to be perfect and allowing myself to be perfectly imperfect. When I embraced my humanity, my connection to spirit deepened, and my readings became more powerful. For me, authenticity is so important because I would encourage everyone to reflect what parts of you, what are parts of yourself you're still hiding, and what would it feel like if you allowed yourself to fully embrace and express your true self. Authenticity aligns us with our soul's truth, allowing us to live in harmony with our purpose. And it's so freeing, so liberating. Let's move to unconditional love, the energy of the divine. Unconditional love is the essence of spirit. It's love that exists without conditions, expectations, or judgment. It says you are worthy just as you are. In psychic mediumship, unconditional love is the frequency that allows spirit's messages to flow with clarity and compassion. It's also the energy we hold for our clients, creating a safe space for healing and transformation. Unconditional love begins within. You cannot truly hold space for others until you have learned to love yourself without judgment. This is often the hardest journey of all because the ego thrives really on self-criticism and comparison. For me, this journey began, and I really feel I'm still on it, when I started practicing self-compassion. I reminded myself that I am worthy not because of what I do, but because of who I am. To nurture unconditional love, ask yourself, where am I withholding love from myself or others? How can I embody the energy of love more fully in my daily life? Unconditional love heals the wounds created by the ego, reconnecting us to the oneness of all things. These virtues aren't just nice idea, they're necessities. Without them, the ego takes over, bringing fear, doubt, or a need for validation that really distorts the purity of our work. So now let's explore Slavic traditions, particularly Polish folk spirituality, that I truly believe offers unique perspective on ego growth and the soul. So the first concept that I would like to touch upon is the duality and unity. In Slavic cosmology, there's a recurring theme of duality, light and dark, life and death, the visible and invisible worlds. Wise women understood that true growth required embracing this duality and finding unity within it. Dissolving the ego in this context meant acknowledging that all things are interconnected. The ego thrives on division, me versus them, right versus wrong. But spiritual growth involves transcending these divisions and understanding that dualities exist within a greater whole. Now, I want to talk about the role of dusha, soul. In Polish folk, belief the dusha, soul, was seen as the eternal essence of a person, distinct from the body and mind. Wise women emphasized nourishing the soul through act of kindness, spiritual discipline, and alignment with divine will. This practice required transcending the ego's focus on material and external concerns and really to prioritize the needs of the soul. And then we have also the ancestral wisdom and guidance. Ancestors held a sacred place in Slavic spirituality. Wise women often connected with ancestors to seek guidance and maintain a sense of belonging to something greater. This practice required humility and the dissolution of personal egoic concerns. So let's journey now to Eastern Europe, where women known as Szeptuchy, whisperers, znachorki, herbalists, and babki, granny healers, held sacred roles in their communities. These women were healers, spiritual guides, and intermediaries between the physical and metaphysical worlds. Their practices combined Christian prayer, herbal medicine, and ancient Slavic traditions. Despite facing persecution and suppression, they carried spiritual wisdom that resonates deeply with the themes of ego dissolution and spiritual growth. So, the key lessons from their practices. I want to start by talking about the harmony with nature. Wise women worked in alignment with the natural world, understanding that we are part of a larger interconnected web. This harmony required them to dissolve their personal desires and surrender to the rhythms of life. Spiritual lesson from here: spending time in nature and observing its cycles can help you release egoic concerns and reconnect with your higher self. Then I want to talk about the importance of being of service to others. Their work was rooted in selflessness. Whether healing, whispering prayers, or offering guidance, their focus was always on serving their community. So a spiritual lesson from this is that when you approach mediumship or spiritual work with an intention to serve, the ego naturally takes a back seat. And let's mention a little bit about ritual and silence. Whispering prayers, chanting, and meditative rituals were central to their practices. These acts of devotion created a state of presence and surrender, very similar to modern meditation. A spiritual lesson from this: incorporate silence, prayer, or chanting into your daily practice to foster humility and connection to spirit. And now I want to briefly talk about the importance of ancestral wisdom. These women often called upon the wisdom of ancestors, creating rituals to honor those who came before. This practice encouraged humility and a sense of belonging to something greater. Spiritual lesson from this is to really honor our ancestors, honor your ancestors. This can really deepen your spiritual connection and remind you of your place in the larger story of life. So let's bring all this wisdom together with practical steps you can take to begin dissolving the ego. I'm going to mention a couple of them, and if you really enjoy them and you would like to learn more, then pay attention, as I will be launching some of the courses where we will really go in depth, and I'll be providing so many more practical steps on how to really dissolve our ego. But just to mention a couple of them. So I want to talk about the mindfulness and meditation. Meditation is one of the most accessible and powerful tool for observing and dissolving the ego. As I've already mentioned, the ego thrives on attachment to thoughts, fears, and identities. Meditation helps us to step back and view these patterns as an observer rather than getting caught up in them. So for anyone who's never started or anyone who's never done any meditation, because this is also important to mention, and I've learned it from so many teachers, that we sometimes assume that things are obvious or that other people know what we know, but I truly believe that we keep learning from each other. So things that might be obvious for me might not be obvious for others, and again, vice versa. So how to really practice mindfulness and meditation? Start with the breath. Find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted. Close your eyes and focus on your breath as it flows in and out. Let your breathing anchor you to the present moment. Then it's so useful to notice any egoic thoughts. As thoughts arise, such as worries about the future or judgments about yourself, acknowledge them without attachment. Say to yourself, this is just a thought, and gently return your focus to your breath. Then you can expand your practice over time. I would encourage you to begin with maybe 5-10 minutes a day and gradually increase the duration as you grow more comfortable. Meditation doesn't eliminate the ego. It teaches you to recognize its voice without identifying with it. So over time, this practice really creates space for your soul's wisdom to shine through. And then I really want to also talk about, okay, I'll give you one more tool. What would be the most important in terms of dissolving ego? I think surrender and trust, because the ego thrives on control, but true spiritual growth requires surrender. So in mediumship, this means that we have to release the need to get it right or control outcomes, and we really should trust spirit to guide us. So how can we practice surrender and trust? I think it is useful to start by setting an intention before a reading, meditation, or any spiritual practice. Say aloud or silently, I trust spirit to guide me. I release control and open myself to divine flow. And really let go of needing to be perfect, because I don't think being perfect exists. Remind yourself that spirit works through you, not because of you. And surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means letting go of egoic resistance and trusting in the wisdom of spirit and the universe. So find really your own words, use your own words that are going to resonate with you when you're going to be setting those intentions. And one more thing that I think it's so important to mention, and I've touched upon that, is the importance of being of service to others. This is one of the most effective ways to dissolve the ego, because we then concentrate and bring attention and focus on service. And the ego is self-centered, always asking, what's in it for me? So service shifts your focus outward, reminding you that your gifts and purpose are meant to benefit others. So when you approach life with a mindset of service, the ego naturally takes a backseat. You align with a higher purpose, opening yourself to spirit's guidance and deeper connections. And for anyone who likes journaling, I think, journaling is also a powerful way of really exploring and understanding your ego. So I'll just give you 3 questions you can maybe ask yourself that can maybe support you on your own journey in terms of dissolving your ego, should you choose to do so. So question number 1, what am I afraid of losing? Question number 2, what stories am I clinging to? And question number 3, what would happen if I let go of this identity? Yeah, I'll leave you with that. So dissolving the ego and aligning with spirit is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong journey. Each practice, each moment of surrender brings you closer to your true self and strengthens your connection to spirit. The wisdom of Szeptuchy and Znachorki, wise women that I've already mentioned about, they remind us that spiritual growth is about humility, service, and a deep connection to the divine. By embracing these lessons, we can walk our own paths with grace, authenticity, and purpose. These practices are not one-time fixes, they're lifelong tools. Ego dissolution is an ongoing process, one that unfolds with every new challenge, insight, and moment of surrender. And for me, each step toward dissolving the ego has deepened my connection with spirit, strengthened my readings, and brought me closer to my true self. So remember, the goal isn't to erase the ego, but to put it in its proper place as a tool, not a master. Every time we face a new challenge, meet a new aspect of ourselves or step into greater authenticity, the ego will try to reassert itself. But each of these moments, they're really an opportunity for growth. Ego death isn't about, as I've mentioned, erasing the self. It's about uncovering the true self beneath any layers of fear and illusion. So I truly believe that this journey for me has been intertwined with my work as a medium, a mother, and a woman. And every step, every challenge has brought me closer to my authentic self and to spirit. So yeah, I think I'll finish that very dense uh, subject. I'm very passionate about speaking about ego, and I was very much encouraged by my spirit guides to mention a little bit about it without being like too academic or so. So thank you, beautiful souls, for joining me on this incredible exploration of ego, spiritual traditions, and practical growth. I hope this episode has inspired you to reflect on your own journey and to draw wisdom from the enduring legacy of these wise women. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to subscribe to the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast and leave a review. It helps me grow our beautiful community of seekers and light workers. So until next time, stay perfectly imperfect and keep shining your radiant light. I'm sending you lots of love. Bye.